Heartwarming encounter. Single mom's accident with billionaire boss reveals amazing love at first. The sun was just beginning to dip below the tree-lined streets of Maplewood, casting a warm golden glow as Sarah hurried down the sidewalk. Juggling her purse, a worn-out diaper bag, and 2 lunchboxes, she barely registered the vibrant town around her. The familiar sounds of children laughing echoed through the air, reminding her of the warmth she worked so hard to provide for her own 2 kids, Clara and Jake. Every day felt like an uphill battle, but Sarah kept pushing through with sheer determination, fueled by love. Then, in a heartbeat, everything changed. As she turned the corner, she collided with a sleek, black luxury sedan. The sound of crunching metal and shattering glass sang in her ears as she stumbled back, her heart racing. Benjamin, a striking figure known for his immense wealth and philanthropic deeds, emerged from the driver's seat, frustration etched across his face. His irritation collided with Sarah's panic, instantly casting them into the epicenter of their contrasting worlds. "Watch where you're going," he snapped, his voice laced with annoyance. But there was something else lurking beneath a flicker of curiosity sparked by Sarah's frantic apologies, her eyes wide with fear. "Sir, I promise, I have to get to work," she stammered, her chest tightening as she glanced at the watch on her wrist. The late shift at the diner, after-school pickup, it all hung on the edge of a precarious balance. She felt the weight of her responsibility settle heavily on her shoulders, but their eyes locked, and something in Benjamin shifted. As the chaos of the accident unfolded, the insurance calls began to flood in like a storm. Sarah's number buzzed in her pocket. She could hear the skeptical whispers of her coworkers before she even answered. Meanwhile, Benjamin found himself strangely lost in thought about her. He recalled fond childhood moments with his own family, moments that had grown distant over the years. His life, so elevated by wealth, suddenly felt overshadowed by the undeniable strength Sarah displayed for her children. Local fundraising events buzzed with life in Maplewood, where every bake sale and community fair felt paramount. Sarah often baked homemade cookies for them, even while juggling school drop-offs and late shifts. Each time she stood behind the counter at the diner, her heart warmed when the community rallied, but it also felt like a constant reminder of her struggles. And now, with whispers buzzing that she was some sort of charity case for Benjamin, panic clawed at her chest. "Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue." With a surprising turn of events, Benjamin stood tall against the judgment of the town, defending Sarah against the rising tide of hushed gossip. "You don't know her story," he shouted to their peers, his voice cutting through the noise. Sarah was taken aback, both grateful and terrified. Was this the bridge that could connect their worlds? In that moment, her heart raced as she took it all in, the faces watching, the tension in the air, and the way Benjamin's stance felt like a protective shield. But would standing together truly be enough against the scrutiny that their lives would face? Uncertainty loomed over her. Sarah stood frozen for a moment, her breath caught in her throat as Benjamin's fierceness resonated in the charged atmosphere around them. The murmurs of the crowd washed over her, a mix of judgment and intrigue. She felt the weight of countless eyes evaluating her, a single mother who had collided with a millionaire. It was a clash of worlds that felt more like a fairy tale gone wrong. "Why are you defending me?" Sarah finally managed to ask, her voice barely above a whisper. Their gazes locked again, and for a moment, the chaos faded. Benjamin's expression softened, and she could see the flicker of something deeper in his eyes. Compassion, maybe? Or was it understanding? "It's not right to judge you without knowing what you've been through," he replied, his tone losing its earlier harshness. "You're more than a rumor." She blinked, surprised. No one had ever spoken to her that way. Most people in town only saw her as the mom who struggled to keep everything together. The whispers, the pity, it felt suffocating. But there was something about Benjamin, standing tall and resolute, that made her heart race with hope. Could this be the moment that changed everything for her? The crowd began to disperse, some looking away, some grudgingly shifting their opinions. But Sarah stayed rooted to the spot. Benjamin's presence felt unexpectedly comforting, drawing her in despite the embarrassment of the situation. "Do you need help?" Benjamin asked, his voice low, almost tentative. Her mind raced. Help? Who needed it more, her or him? She could barely accept help from her own friends, let alone a billionaire. Yet the softness in his voice stirred something inside her, a glimmer of possibility. "I know, I'm okay," she lied, the familiar pride defending her words. But the truth was there, raw and evident. She was juggling too much, and it was all beginning to feel heavy. The weight settled on her shoulders, and for a moment, she allowed herself to feel it. Benjamin seemed to sense her hesitancy. "Look, I know this isn't ideal, but maybe we could grab a coffee? At least talk about what happened?" His eyes held an earnestness that made her pulse quicken. 100 thoughts flashed through her mind. She imagined the way the town would react again, the judgments and the looks of disapproval. But there was also a sense of intrigue. Could talking to him lead to an understanding that would change their perceptions? Still torn, she hesitated. What would people say? "Let them talk," he said with a firmness that took her by surprise. "You deserve to have someone on your side. You deserve more than this." A shiver ran down her spine as his words sunk in. This was so unlike the life she was used to, this twisted combination of fear and excitement. In the end, drawn by a force she couldn't quite explain, Sarah nodded. "Okay, coffee. Just coffee." As they walked toward the local cafe, the air buzzed with a new kind of tension. Sarah's heart raced, an uncanny mix of anxiety and thrill. Would this be an opportunity for a fresh start, or would it tie her deeper into the webs of scrutiny from their town? As they approached the cafe, the scent of roasted coffee wafted through the air. She glanced sideways at Benjamin, the man she had mistook for just another wealthy out-of-touch figure. Could he be more than this? With every step, uncertainty loomed ahead, and Sarah wondered, were the walls built to protect her heart strong enough for what lay ahead? As they entered the cafe, the sound of laughter and chatter flooded her senses, but amidst the noise, one question echoed in her mind: what if this was the beginning of a whole new chapter? The bell above the cafe door jingled softly as they walked inside, a sound that felt almost magical amidst the hushed conversations. Benjamin held the door open for her, his gesture both simple and surprisingly chivalrous. Sarah stepped into the warmth of the cafe, where the ambience was an inviting blend of rich coffee aromas and the comforting murmur of patrons lost in their own worlds. As they approached the counter, Sarah's heart beat faster. Did she really want to engage with Benjamin? A billionaire who could easily have any woman he wanted? This was crazy, right? But then again, he had defended her. He saw beyond the labels, beyond the looks of pity she had grown used to. A part of her yearned for someone to see her as more than just a struggling single mother. "What do you usually order?" Benjamin asked, pulling her from her thoughts as he stepped closer to the counter. "Just a regular coffee. I don't get too fancy," Sarah replied, trying to sound nonchalant. The barista flashed a friendly smile as she took their orders, and Sarah felt a flicker of ease wash over her. "A regular coffee it is," Benjamin said, his grin widening. "I'm just going to go with your choice, then." Bold move, she chuckled softly, a smile creeping onto her lips. They found a small table by the window, sunlight spilling in and illuminating their faces. Benjamin sat across from her, his eyes sparkling with curiosity. The initial tension gradually faded, replaced by the shared warmth of the cafe and the gentle clinking of mugs and forks. "Tell me about yourself," he said, leaning in slightly. His genuine interest made her heartbeat stutter. "What do you love doing?" Sarah hesitated. The question was simple yet layered with what felt like the weight of her entire life. "I used to love painting, before everything became so complicated," she admitted, her voice quieting. "Now it's mostly just work and keeping up with daily life." "Painting? That's incredible," Benjamin replied, encouragement spilling from his words. "What kind of things do you paint?" "Landscapes mostly. They remind me of peace," Sarah shared, the words flowing more easily now. "It's hard to find peace when you're juggling everything. But when I paint, it's like a little escape." The flicker of understanding in his eyes made her feel seen in a way she hadn't anticipated. "I can see that. The beauty of creating something, and in a way, reclaiming tranquility." Tears threatened to well up in Sarah's eyes as she fought to keep the conversation light. She had always painted to escape the chaos of her life, but now here she was, slowly letting someone into her thoughts and fears. It felt vulnerable, but there was a strength in being honest. As the coffee arrived, the rich smell enveloped them. Sarah took a sip, trying to ground herself in the moment. "Why did you step in back there?" she asked suddenly, the question bubbling to the surface before she could hold it back. "You didn't have to confront them for me." Benjamin hesitated, a shadow crossing his face. "Because I couldn't stand by and watch someone get torn apart. It reminded me of how lonely it can feel when everyone jumps to conclusions." Sarah's heart twisted at his admission. In that moment, she realized he too carried burdens hidden beneath his polished exterior. "It's exhausting, isn't it? Trying to prove yourself to others," she murmured, suddenly aware of how connected they felt in their shared experiences. "Exhausting, but necessary," he replied softly, looking deep into her eyes. "We should never have to change who we are to fit someone else's narrative." These words echoed between them, binding their differences into a shared understanding. Each took a sip of their coffee, letting the warmth mingle with the warmth of the moment. But outside the cafe, the world continued to bustle. The townsfolk would still talk, their opinions swirling just as freely as the steam rising from their cups. Sarah couldn't help but wonder what it all meant. Could she break free from the confines of judgment? Would Benjamin's presence be a blessing or another burden? Just then, the cafe door swung open, a gust of chilly air blowing through, interrupting her thoughts. Sarah looked past Benjamin with a sinking feeling as she recognized the figure standing there, the newcomer casting a long shadow across the small table. What was she going to do when faced with the familiar face from her past? The figure at the door took a step inside, shaking off the cold like a phantom emerging from the shadows of Sarah's past. Her heart began to race. It was Tom, the father of her child and an ex she had hoped to never see again. He was every bit the embodiment of her fears, with his confident stance and familiar smirk. The noise of the cafe faded into a dull hum as Sarah's mind raced, instinctively trying to gauge the consequences of this unexpected encounter. "Sarah," Tom called, his voice cutting through the atmosphere like a knife. His gaze landed on her, and for just a moment, everything else disappeared. She tried to maintain her composure, but her stomach twisted at the thought of what he might say and about the chaos he could bring. Benjamin turned slightly in his chair, sensing the shift in energy. "Is everything okay?" he asked, concern etching his features. Sarah forced a smile, but it didn't reach her eyes. It's just someone I used to know." "Just ignore Sarah." "There you are," Tom interrupted, striding toward their table. He spotted Benjamin and his expression shifted, the smirk morphing into something more cautious. "And you've got company. Keeping some high-class friends now, I see." The implication dripped with disdain, and each word pricked at Sarah's defenses. She wasn't in the mood to play it cool. "I'm fine, Tom," she stated sharply, assuming a protective stance. It felt a bit bold to stand stronger against him, but for Benjamin's sake and her own she needed to show she wouldn't crumble. Tom's eyes narrowed, studying her face, trying to read her resolve. Really? Because it looked like you were struggling not long ago. Let us not make this a scene, Benjamin interjected, his voice steady yet firm. There was a surprising edge to his demeanor, something that radiated strength. Tom flicked his gaze toward Benjamin, sizing him up. I'm just looking out for Sarah. She needs to remember the real world doesn't revolve around high-flying dreams. I think Sarah knows her reality quite well, thank you, Benjamin replied, his tone smooth but with a hint of challenge. A brief silence hung in the air, tension thick enough to cut. Sarah felt a rush of gratitude toward Benjamin, but she also felt the waves of unease wash over her. She wished she could escape this moment, to retreat back into the comfort of their earlier conversation. What do you want, Tom? She asked, trying to bring clarity to the chaos. Just came to see how you were doing, he said, but the feigned sincerity rang hollow. It's been a while. You still painting? He didn't really care. Deep down, she knew it. This was about control, about keeping her tethered to a past he couldn't let go of. Honestly, that's none of your business anymore, Sarah heard herself say, surprising even herself with the strength behind the words. Tom's posture shifted, and frustration flickered across his face. Yeah? Well, you should be careful who you associate with. You never know how it might end up. Benjamin's eyes narrowed at that comment. Sarah is doing just fine, he asserted emphatically. The tension between the three of them was thick, but it was also strange. It felt like the moment was serving up a confrontation that might drive Sarah to confront her past, to reclaim her voice. She took a deep breath, determined to stand her ground. Tom, I've moved on. I'm good with where I am, she said, looking him straight in the eye. The shift in Tom's expression told her everything she needed to know. Perhaps he didn't see her as someone who could truly step away, but this time, she wouldn't let him dim the spark she felt beginning to ignite inside her, not in front of Benjamin. Just when Sarah thought the confrontation was nearing its end, a chilling realization washed over her. What fallout would Tom's presence mean for her and Benjamin? Would this moment change everything, or could it bring them closer together? Sarah's hands trembled slightly as she glanced at Benjamin, uncertainty radiating off her. What would this mean for their connection, now that her past had stepped in to intrude? The tension stretched like a taut string, caught between Sarah and Tom. She felt her heart pounding in her ears, the weight of his presence heavy yet oddly illuminating. She glanced at Benjamin, his steady gaze providing her a lifeline amidst the chaos swirling in her mind. Tom broke the moment of silence, leaning against the table with a familiarity that felt invasive. Look, I'm not here to pick a fight, he said, though the edge in his tone belied the claim. I just wanted to see if you're okay. It's been a long time. The least I could do is check in. Sarah felt a flicker of anger. Check in? This isn't just a casual encounter, Tom. You know that. Benjamin shifted in his seat, eyes trained on Tom with an intensity that hinted he wouldn't back down. Maybe you should leave her alone, he said, his voice even, yet carrying a force that made Sarah's heart swell. Tom's smirk returned, a twisted smile that didn't reach his eyes. Oh, is that how it is? You think you're protecting her? He chuckled, but it felt hollow, the laughter echoing mockingly in the cafe's quiet corners. She's a mother. You're a momentary distraction, buddy. The word struck Sarah like a cold wind, a reminder of how vulnerable she felt being a single mother. She swallowed hard, battling the rising tide of self-doubt. Was this all she was, a distraction? No. She had to remember the strength she had cultivated. Enough. Sarah cut in, her voice unexpectedly firm. I'm not a distraction. I'm a person working hard to provide for my child. Your opinion doesn't define me. Each word felt like a step toward reclaiming her narrative, a push back against the shadows of her past. Tom's expression shifted, caught off guard. The confidence he wore like armor began to crack. "I see you've changed," he muttered, surprise mingling with disbelief. "I've grown. I've moved on." She paused, taking a deep breath, wrestling with the embarrassment she felt over her past. "And I have a life that is much more fulfilling without you in it." Just then, a little girl tugged at the hem of Sarah's coat, blinking up at her with wide, curious eyes. "Mommy, who is that man?" Sarah looked down and felt her heart soften. "He is someone I used to know, honey," she said gently, briefly glancing at Tom. Benjamin shot Sarah a proud smile, the warmth in his gaze lifting some of the weight off her shoulders. "And you know what?" he said, rounding his voice with vibrant warmth. "You're doing an amazing job, Sarah." Tom's facade continued to crack. "You're playing house now? I thought you were more ambitious than this." "Ambition has many faces, Tom," she retorted, feeling the fire inside her rekindle. "What I wanted for my life has changed, and that's okay. I've learned to take pride in my choices." The confrontation left a tension like static in the air, but it was different now, charged with something powerful. Benjamin leaned slightly across the table. "How about we leave the past where it belongs?" he suggested, adding a small but intentional smile. Tom's eyes darted between them, frustration flaring. "You think you can just sweep this under the rug? It doesn't work like that." "Actually, it does," Sarah replied, voice low. "And from now on, I decide who's in my life and who isn't." With that declaration hanging in the air like a promise, Sarah took Benjamin's hand. It felt reassuring, grounding her as she sought clarity amidst complications. Tom's eyes darkened. "This isn't over," he warned, almost sneering before making a swift exit. As the door swung shut behind him, Sarah took a deep breath, feeling the chaos melt away. She turned to Benjamin, her heart still racing but now fueled by a mixture of anxiety and exhilaration. "I didn't want you to see that side of my life." Benjamin squeezed her hand. "You didn't need to hide it. I'm here, and I see you, all of you. And I want to keep seeing you." Sarah felt warmth wash over her at his words, yet uncertainty still lingered. What would this mean for them as they moved forward? Did confronting her past open doors, or would it push them apart? Just as she was about to voice her thoughts, the bell above the cafe door rang again, drawing her attention. Who could it be now? The door swung open, and a chilly breeze swept through the cafe. Sarah's gaze snapped to the entrance. Silence enveloped the space as a tall figure stepped inside. He was impeccably dressed in a tailored coat, the kind that seemed to have walked right off a runway. He scanned the room, eyes finally landing on Sarah and Benjamin. "Excuse me," he gently said, approaching their table. There was a confidence in his stride, an aura of purpose that drew attention, even from the murmurs of patrons around them. "Can I help you?" Sarah asked, cautious as she assessed his presence. The stranger smiled, a charming yet slightly sheepish grin. "I'm Alex," he introduced himself, extending a hand. "I'm actually looking for someone named Sarah." "That's me," Sarah replied, feeling a mixture of intrigue and wariness. "Perfect," he said, shaking her hand, his grip firm yet friendly. "I was hoping to talk about an opportunity that could benefit you." He gestured briefly at Benjamin and perhaps a few others in your community. A jolt of curiosity ran through her. "An opportunity? What do you mean?" "As you might know, I run a non-profit organization, and we've been looking to partner with local talent. From what I learned, you have a unique story that could inspire others, particularly single parents overcoming challenges." Benjamin perked up, eyes shining with interest. "That sounds incredible." Sarah hesitated. "I don't know if I'm the right fit. I'm not sure what I could bring to the table." "Every story matters," Alex insisted, his voice warm and inviting. "Especially yours. I heard about your journey, the strength it takes to balance work and motherhood. It's the kind of thing that gives hope. We're looking to share stories like yours to encourage others." His words sunk into her heart, stirring emotions and thoughts she didn't expect. Could this really be an opportunity to tell her story? To make a difference, perhaps? Or was it just another fleeting moment hinged on idealism? Before she could respond, a shadow crossed her mind as she thought of Tom. Her past had a way of creeping in, casting doubt over new doors opening in front of her. What if Tom's words had twisted themselves into the fabric of her doubts, undermining her worth? "Sarah?" Benjamin's questioning tone cut through her spiraling thoughts. "You should consider this." She squeezed his hand and nodded slowly, drawing strength from him. "Okay, I'm interested. But I want to know more about your organization," she replied, her voice steadying. "Absolutely," Alex's eyes lit up with excitement. "We can meet up, discuss potential ideas, and how we can bring your story to life. I think you'd really resonate with our audience." The bell above the door jingled again, breaking her focus for a moment. A few heads turned towards the entrance. This time, it was a woman, tall and composed, with an air of authority that clamored for attention. "I'm sorry to interrupt," she said, taking a step forward. "But I believe we need to speak, Alex." Sarah's heart raced. The woman's tone was urgent, almost commanding. What was going on? Alex glanced between the two women, his expression betraying a hint of annoyance mixed with urgency. "Can it wait, Amanda? I'm in the middle of something." "Not really," she insisted, her voice firm. "It's about the project you're working on. We have some important updates." An uneasy tension filled the space. Sarah exchanged a quick glance with Benjamin, who was equally perplexed by the sudden shift. Alex sighed, seemingly torn. "Can we continue this conversation later, Sarah?" The air was thick with uncertainty, and Sarah's pulse quickened. She had finally started to glimpse a hope for something more, yet there it was, a potential barrier looming right in front of her. "Sure," she managed, uncertainty lacing her words. "Thank you," he said, promising to reach out soon. But as he walked away with Amanda, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that whatever they were discussing was more significant than it seemed. She turned to Benjamin, her chest tightening. "What do you think that was about?" "Something tells me it's not over for any of us," he replied, another crease etching itself on his brow. The whispers of her past were getting closer, weaving together with the present. What did it all mean? A new opportunity? Old complications? As Sarah looked out into the bustling cafe, she felt the familiar shadow of doubt creeping back in. Was she truly ready to step forward? And just like that, the warmth of her heart began to dim, leaving her wondering if she was about to face yet another tumultuous storm. What would the next chapter of her life bring? The cafe buzzed with chatter, but for Sarah, it felt like a world fading away. A storm of questioning emotions swirled within her. She took a deep breath, the smell of freshly brewed coffee mingling with the sweetness of pastries nearby, but it did little to calm her racing heart. "Sarah, you okay?" Benjamin's voice broke through her thoughts, concern etching his features. "Yeah," she managed, though the uncertainty was painted all over her face. She wondered what had just happened. Was it a chance to make an impact, or simply a fleeting moment that would vanish like the steam rising from her cup? "Let us get out of here," he suggested gently. "You don't have to decide anything right now. Let us just walk." Sarah nodded, grateful for his presence. They stepped outside, the chill of the air wrapping around them like a heavy blanket. She hugged her arms, feeling the weight of her thoughts pressing down. As they wandered down the street, she replayed Alex's words in her head. Every story matters. It felt like a lifeline thrown into turbulent waters, a chance for her voice to be heard. Did she dare grasp it? "Sarah," Benjamin said, pulling her from her reverie. I think you should really consider talking to him. It sounds like you could help so many people. I know, she sighed. But what if I just bombed? What if I'm not the inspiring person everyone thinks I should be? Have you heard yourself? He asked, stopping to meet her gaze. You are inspiring. You've taken control of your life. You don't give up. You inspire me every day just by being you. Her heart softened. Maybe she was a little stronger than she gave herself credit for. Maybe it was time to push her self-doubt aside. But what if her thoughts faltered, the image of Tom creeping back in? What if I fail? What if he realizes that I'm not cut out for this? Then you try again, he stated firmly. You can't let someone else's words dictate how you live. You fought too hard to push past that. She felt the warmth of his support filling the cracks of her worry. With each moment they spent together, a tiny seed of hope began to grow. All right, she said slowly. I'll consider it. But something about that conversation felt off. What were they discussing? It looked intense. Benjamin shrugged. I can't pretend to know what is going on with them. But it seems to matter a lot to Alex. Just stay open-minded, okay? As they walked, the city buzzed around them, lights blinking like stars against the darkening sky, but Sarah felt unsettled. The earlier thrill of possibility jostled with an unseen fear. A few blocks later, they decided to rest on a park bench. The surrounding trees swayed gently in the wind, their leaves whispering secrets. Sarah watched the shadows dance and flicker, caught between wanting to leap at new chances and the shackles of the past. I hope he contacts you soon, Benjamin said as he leaned back, eyes narrowing at the stars above. You deserve to be heard. Don't you ever forget that. Thanks, Ben, she whispered, feeling another spark of determination. Maybe she could share her journey in a way that would touch others. But just then, her phone buzzed within her pocket, startling her. Pulling it out, her heart skipped a beat. A message from Alex flashed on the screen. Can we meet tomorrow? I'd love to talk more about the project. Sarah looked at Benjamin, her breath hitching in her throat. What if this is it? Then you need to seize the moment, he urged, a smile spreading across his face. You've got this. She felt a rush of empowerment pooling inside her. Maybe Alex was the bridge to something greater, yes, but what lurked behind those fleeting words? As she prepared to respond, the shadows of her past began to swirl again, reminding her that sometimes stepping forward meant confronting demons long left behind. What awaited her in that meeting? And would she finally find a way to silence Tom's doubts once and for all? Underneath the glimmering stars, Sarah's heart raced. She stared at her phone, the words flickering back at her like a heartbeat sudden and alive. It felt surreal that just hours ago, she was surrounded by bustling conversations, and now, a potential opportunity lay at her fingertips. What are you going to say? Benjamin asked, breaking the silence but gently keeping his voice low, aware of the weight pressing down on her. I don't know. Her fingers hovered over the screen, unsure whether to act impulsively or to deliberate. What if I say the wrong thing? What if I blow this chance? Just be honest, he advised. You have a unique story. Speak from the heart. That's all anyone really wants. Nervously, she typed out a response. Yes. I can meet tomorrow. What time works for you? After hitting send, it felt like she hurled a small stone into a huge lake. The ripples of uncertainty clung to her, echoing her fears. They sat in silence for a moment, Sarah's mind a whirlpool of thoughts. She could picture Alex's enthusiasm, the way his eyes lit up when he spoke about making a difference. But she also remembered the night Tom's words strung her heart tight like a bow, reminders of everything she tried to escape. Just then, her phone chimed again. The sudden sound jolted her, and she read the response. How about 2 p.m. at the library cafe? Can't wait to share ideas. Benjamin smiled, his enthusiasm bright. See? That's awesome. You really have to do this. But Sarah felt the joy start to fade into the shadows of anxious what-ifs. What if I can't articulate my thoughts? What if I freeze up in front of him? I'm not as eloquent as he thinks. Panic bubbled in her stomach. Take a breath, he said, moving closer, his presence grounding. You know more than you think. You haven't been quiet all this time for nothing. There's strength in vulnerability. The warmth of his voice wrapped around her, but doubt still cackled in the back of her mind. She thought of all those times she had tried to open up, only to have Tom dismiss her feelings, questioning the validity of her experiences. With him gone, that self-doubt had crept back in, ready to shackle her again. Why did I feel so different today? She wondered aloud, hoping Benjamin had an answer. It was like a light turned on. His eyes sparkled as he continued. You heard something that resonated with your spirit. You're ready to share, Sarah. Speaking up could not only heal you, but help others too. His words echoed in her head, igniting something fierce within her. Maybe she didn't have to be perfect. Maybe the act of being real, being herself, was enough. As they continued to sit together, countless thoughts simmered in her heart, each one urging her forward. I think you're right, she finally said, stealing a breath. I'm holding on to my fears, but what if my fear of failing means I'm also too afraid to succeed? Exactly. Benjamin beamed. Trust that you're worthy, you matter. Sarah felt like a bird which had been caged for too long, wings bizarrely fluttering against the metal bars. Freedom was just a few beats away, but didn't quite seem tangible yet. Before she knew it, night had turned to a soft glow of dawn. The thought of tomorrow's meeting loomed large, almost daunting. But then again, the idea of letting herself shine, of sharing her story, felt electrifying. What if I take you with me? She blurted out, half amused. For moral support? Benjamin chuckled. I'd be more than happy to cheer you on. Just promise me you won't overthink it. Deal. A sense of anticipation started to replace her doubt. In the distance, the sun began to rise, painting the sky in hues of gold and pink. It dawned on her then this was more than just a meeting. It was a chance to reclaim her voice. But as she contemplated the possibilities ahead, the shadow of Tom loomed larger in her thoughts. Could she really show up unlocked and unguarded, ready to confront that part of her life? What if the darkness lurking behind her past was about to meet the light of her future? When the sun fully broke free from the horizon, Sarah could feel its warmth on her skin, easing her tension, but the flutter of nerves still danced in her chest. This was it. Tomorrow was not just about a meeting, it was a leap into unknown territory. With a final prayer to the universe, she resolved to get some rest. As the clock ticked into the early hours, sleep eluded her. Thoughts of the meeting replayed endlessly in her mind, like an old record stuck in a groove. She tossed and turned, wrestling with fragments of anxiety and excitement. What if she forgot everything she wanted to say? What if she stammered through the conversation like a schoolgirl in front of her crush? Yet, amidst her spiraling thoughts, a flicker of determination began to grow. She would give it her all. Morning came faster than she hoped. Steam curled up from her coffee, the smell wrapping around her like a comforting blanket. She sat in her small kitchen, mind racing as she stared out the window, watching the neighborhood slowly wake up. The sound of children laughing, the rustling of morning newspapers, and the distant hum of cars reminded her that life moved on, with or without her participation. All right, she whispered to herself, gripping the mug tightly. You can do this. With newfound resolve, Sarah created a rough outline of what she wanted to say. She jotted down key points on a napkin, her confidence building with every word. When her phone chimed with a message from Benjamin just an hour before her meeting, it felt like a much-needed dose of encouragement. Hey! Thinking of you, remember to breathe. You got this. Sarah smiled at her friend's cheerfulness. She shot back a quick reply, "Thanks. I'm going to impress him." But as the clock ticked down, her boldness wavered. She scrutinized her outfit, changing 3 times in 30 minutes, finally settling on her favorite blouse, the one that made her feel strong and accepted. The drive to the cafe became a blur, each red signal light pulling her deeper into a spiral of doubts. "You're fine," she muttered to herself as she parked. Her heart raced as she opened the car door, taking a deep breath. The Library Cafe was a charming little place, filled with sunlight and laughter. The smell of freshly baked pastries wafted out like a warm hug, but today it felt foreign, daunting. Walking in, she scanned the room for Alex. There he was, seated at a table near the window, a picture of ease. His casual smile glimmered with anticipation, and suddenly Sarah's nerves wavered, caught off guard by the warmth in his gaze. "Sarah. You made it," he said, rising to meet her. The way he stood, so effortlessly confident, made her heart flutter and calmed the storm inside her all at once. "Hey, thank you for having me," she replied, mustering a smile as she settled across from him. Their conversation began to flow, the initial awkwardness soon whisked away by shared laughter and animated ideas. As she spoke about her experiences and dreams, Sarah felt layers of uncertainty peel away. With every word, she began to reclaim bits of herself she thought were lost. She saw Alex nodding, genuinely engaged, and for the first time in a long time, she felt heard. But just as she reached a pivotal point in her story, an honest revelation about her struggles with Tom, her voice faltered. The words caught in her throat, fear trickling back in like a shadow. "Take your time," Alex encouraged gently, his eyes holding hers with an assurance that made her pulse quicken. Her heart raced, caught between the urge to share everything and the fear of vulnerability that made her want to retreat. Would she really let down her guard? Would she dare to reveal the truth? The moment suspended in the air, shimmering with both promise and apprehension. And in that heartbeat, as the cafe buzzed around them, she had to decide, was she ready to not just speak, but to be truly seen? Would she risk it all for a chance at connection, or would she slip back into the safety of silence? The room felt charged, Sarah's heart raced as she sat across from Alex at the cafe table, the sun pouring in through the window like a spotlight on this unfolding moment. As the past and present collided, she realized this was her chance to embrace her truth, to reclaim her narrative not only for herself but for all those like her who felt lost in their own stories. Taking a deep breath, she leaned in, her voice steady. "I grew up believing I had to be strong enough to handle everything alone. That vulnerability was weakness." She glanced at Alex, the sincerity in his eyes urging her on. "But I've realized that being vulnerable is what connects us. My struggles as a single mom shaped who I am, and it's time for me to own it." The smile that spread across Alex's face felt like a warm beacon of acceptance. "That's so powerful, Sarah. Your story can inspire others who feel like they're alone in their battles." As the words spilled out like rain after a drought, she painted a vivid picture of her life, the exhaustion, the joy, the moments of doubt, and the fierce love she had for her children. She spoke about the day she had collided with Benjamin, how that moment sparked something deeper, a sense of hope that had begun to blossom inside her. "I've spent so much time afraid of what others think of my ex's words," she continued, the tide of emotions ebbing and flowing like the spring breeze. "I thought I needed to stay in the shadows, but standing up for myself in that cafe made me realize I deserve to shine, not just survive." Laughter bubbled from Alex as he nodded, totally captivated. "You're already doing it. By sharing your story, you're breaking those chains." A newfound courage surged within her, strengthened by the connection they shared. All the fears and self-doubt began to fade, whispering reminders of her worth that had been buried too deeply. With every moment spent in this conversation, sunlight seemed to seep into the crevices of her heart, rekindling a long-dormant fire. "Tell me more about how you balance everything," Alex prompted, leaning in. "Health, kids, work, what does that look like for you?" It's chaos, beautiful chaos, she chuckled, finding joy in the memory. Each day is a challenge, but it's also a canvas. I'm not perfect, but every meal I make, every late night at work, it's all part of a bigger picture. My kids see my struggles, but they also see my strength, and that gives me strength in return. In that moment, Sarah felt the shift. She was no longer the timid woman striving to prove her worth to a world that only saw her as a statistic. She was a warrior, standing tall. I really want this to mean something, she confessed. I want others to understand that it's okay to be vulnerable and ask for help, to share their journeys. Alex's eyes sparkled. That's exactly what we need. People want to connect with real stories, and you have the passion that can light a fire. With adrenaline coursing through her veins, Sarah felt alive. The shadows of her past, the whispers and doubts that once shaped her, faded, replaced by encouragement. Just then, her phone buzzed. Sarah glanced down, nearly jumping from her seat. It was a message from Benjamin, a simple note that felt monumental in this moment of triumph. Thinking of you. You're killing it. The warmth from his words flooded her with a sense of comfort, bolstering her confidence. She turned back to Alex. I want to be part of something bigger than me, she said, the conviction in her voice ringing clear. It's more than just about me accepting my story. I want to inspire others to do the same. Then let us make it happen, he exclaimed, excitement bubbling over. We'll organize community events, share these stories. Your story can pave the way for so many others. In that instant, everything snapped into place. Sarah could see the pathway illuminated by the kindness of strangers and the support of those around her. She was ready to step into the light, to elevate her voice and empower others. The fear that had once gripped her heart began to transform into fierce determination. That morning, she embraced vulnerability, communication, and the power of connection. As they left the cafe, laughter mingled with the sound of distant chimes, and outside the world spun on, full of opportunity. The sun shone brighter, the colors of life bursting into vivid hues around them, each a promise of what was yet to come. It won't always be easy, Alex said, his voice steadfast as they stepped into the light, but I will be here, every step of the way. Thank you, Sarah said, her heart swelling. For believing in me, for seeing me. And there was Benjamin, waiting by her car with that knowing smile, as if he could sense the shift inside her. As she approached him, a sense of completeness washed over her. Did you have a good meeting? He asked, concern melting into warmth. It was incredible, she replied, a radiant smile illuminating her face. I've finally learned that sharing my story means I'm not just facing my past, I'm reclaiming my future. In that moment, under the endless blue sky, Sarah felt free. She knew she would face challenges ahead, but she also knew she'd never step back into the shadows this time. She was walking into the light. So here's your chance. You need to subscribe now to catch every single transformative story like this one. Leave a like now to fuel the algorithm. Your support is crucial. Comment below with your thoughts and feelings about Sarah's journey. And don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Your voice can inspire others. Let us lift each other up.